This is the Mighty Books Podcast. This week's featured author is Mark Miller. Mark is a local Washington State author who writes under the pen name of Marshall Miller. Mr. Miller is a veteran of the United States Air Force and a retired federal investigator, senior special agent. He has an extensive published series of science fiction novels and short stories, as well as a novel, Jade Eyes, based on his experiences as a U.S. Customs Homeland Security criminal investigator. Originally planning to become an investigative reporter, fate led to Mark Miller obtaining a 30-year career in law enforcement. He is currently published by Blue Forge Press, a Northwest-located publishing company. His literary works are available on Amazon, through Barnes & Noble, and on the Marshall Miller website. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Mighty Books Podcast. Today with me, we have Mark Miller. Mark, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking. So today we're here to talk about you as an author, your book, or in this case, many books. But what book are we primarily, hanging around talking about today?
It's my Jade Eyes books. Of course, I use a pen name, Marshall Miller. However, Jade Eyes is about it's a fictionalized book, but it's based on my experience as a senior special agent with Homeland Security. My last post of duty was over in Seattle. So I just decided that after I wrote a bunch of science fiction that it was time to write a book based on what I actually did in life and try to create a book concerning primarily human trafficking, smuggling, and some other types of crime that I was involved in my 30 years of law enforcement.
Holy cow. That's quite some serious topics too.
One reason why I really got into this too was just before I retired the last few years, because they did the real huge organization after 9/11 in 2005. They codified it when they formed Homeland Security officially. They put immigration customs together and all that good stuff. We had a whole bunch of really good young agents come in, but some of them weren't like right out of college. Some of them had previous work experience with other careers. So they're a little bit more mature. So we had a couple young female agents come in, and they weren't, like I said, they weren't like right out of college, 21 years of age. They were, getting close to 30 and stuff. But they jumped in there, a whole new career. One of them had been doing a whole bunch of lab work and stuff like that, the biological sciences. The other one had been years in marketing and hotel management, stuff like that. So I took those two young ladies and I combined them into one character, basically a female agent of mixed ethnic background who had a career with her family prior to this and also had a lot of education, but decided that she wanted to try something different. And so that's kind of like her adventure of getting into this big, huge investigation that starts to go kind of sideways. And that's part of the story, is explaining all through the story, A, how investigations really occur, and also B, you're dealing with human beings, so there's always pitfalls and you have to watch out for them.
Right. Well, you got to have some sideways stories going on. You can't, it gets too boring when it's just, rudimentary stuff. It's basic. Everything went according to plan. Said no good story ever.
And the funny thing about it, it's based on actual things going sideways in real life, investigations and stuff, and just some of the problems you have. I mean, problems you have with management, problems you have with sometimes even your coworkers, problems you have, of course, with the bad guys, problems you have with the legal system, things like that.
Right.
So
yeah.
I tried to explain exactly how that all works. But of course, you got to fictionalize it, change the names, take the innocent, good old dragnet,
Yeah, you got to have some reality with it, I guess. You got to have some reality in your stories. I mean, that's kind of why people gravitate towards, crime history, mystery novels in general. That's something people look at. They want to see, yes, it's fictional, but it's based in reality to a part. So it's just,
I have one little problem with a lot of the quote unquote, they call them mysteries, but actually most of them are crime novels, because when I think of mysteries, I'm old enough to remember the old Ellery Queen and Hardy Boys books and stuff like that, where they actually laid out a mystery, and you had to read the book, and they left you all these clues, and you tried to figure out by the end of the book who the bad guy was, and who did what. But today it's more just crime thriller. In other words, you got the protagonist, you usually figure out who the bad guy is real early. And then it's all about what happens then, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that that's how they make movies now. Very few movies have the big, well, let's sit there and try to figure out who actually did the murder. Like you can go to these, it used to be like before the virus hit, they had a crime train, a mystery train where you get on this train and, you go up on the train, and then they have this mystery and murder mystery and have all these actors and actresses acting stuff out, and you have to try to figure it out. Well, very few people write books like that anymore.
More like subtle clues and whatnot versus like hard evidence or something like that. Or
unfortunately, I think Hollywood's kind of killed part of it because people have lost their patience. Everybody wants immediate gratification. So they want to see all the explosions, and they want to see this and that and the other. So when you write a book, of course, if you wrote a book about this day-to-day police work, literally a lot of it would be sitting at a desk writing reports. 20 minutes later, as you're typing on the computer, cussing at it. Though I could tell stories like when I was working with the Border Patrol years and years ago. We didn't even have computers yet. We were still using the old Remington typewriters, and we'd be sitting there trying to do reports, and all of a sudden some guy would just start yelling and screaming and cursing because the typewriter would keep jamming up, and all of a sudden we'd pick a typewriter up and just throw it in the trash. And they always had like one or two people who were really good mechanics. And they're always like tearing typewriters apart, trying to put them back together and get one that really works. So I think back to that, and then I look at all the laptops and stuff today, and I go, oh my God, people don't realize how easy they have it these days.
Technology has come a long way. Not saying it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's far from perfect. Technology drives me crazy. As long as it's working how it's tended to work, I'm okay with it. I have a good relationship with it. As soon as it starts doing weird stuff, I don't want anything to do with it at that point. I'm one of those guys who just does not care.
I agree.
So how long did it take you to write Jade Eyes?
It's kind of an odd story with Jade Eyes because it didn't take me all that long to write it per se. What happened is I went over a few years ago to Pacific Northwest Writers Association, and I actually pitched it, and I had an agent say, hey, this looks really great. I work for such and such a publisher, so we're going to offer you a contract out of the clear blue sky. And I'm going, Jesus Christ, that's good, So he said, but you got to change some things, and like you got to make sure you have a happy ending, because originally I wasn't really going to have a happy ending. So it was a romance publisher. I had a female protagonist who gets involved in a romantic situation. So they said, oh yeah, that'll fit. So I had to change the ending a little bit and all that jazz and make it a little bit happier. But so I'm going along, and about 7 or 8, almost 9 months into this whole thing, because they send you their style rules and you got to do the edit to them, and you send it back to them, to the agent, and then there's got to review it, and then they send you back. Well, all of a sudden, out of clear blue sky, I get this email from the publisher. Now, she had already sent me a contract, so I already had a contract. And she says, well, I've had a falling out with the agent, so we're not going to publish your book now. And I sent her an email going back, what are you talking about? You sent me a contract. She says, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. I said, lady, I got your emails. You sent me a contract. So we got this big kerfuffle, and she starts accusing me of trying to blackmail her to publish it and all this other jazz. So I could tell right then that even if she did publish it, it would be like one copy.
Oh.
One of those kind of cases. So then now I've got this book. It's all done, ready to go. So I then found my current publisher, Blue Forge Press, who's a local publisher, and they operate like a traditional publishing. But Blue Forge originally picked up all my science fiction and adventure type books. So I kept pushing Jade Eyes, saying, oh, come on, you like the way I write, And so finally I said, oh, okay, we'll publish a crime thriller. So, and since that time, I've actually been selling that more than a lot of my sci-fi books.
Okay.
I think it's because when people find out that it's based on my experiences and people I've worked with, then they go, oh, well, this isn't BS. One of the other little pet peeves I have, you've got a lot of people who are like have law degrees and stuff, and they always act like, oh, I know what cops do. Well, until you've kicked doors in, until you've actually dealt with all this crap, until you've actually had to, stay up all night and write a report and run in there and drag some, blankety blank in front of for initial appearance in front of a judge and all this jazz. No, you really don't understand. You think you do.
Right.
And this is the problem with Hollywood. That's why I always say they front load their stories. They want all these explosions and stuff to get people to come watch the movies. But 9 times out of 10, that's not how things start out.
Right.
Sometimes,
they want shock and awe. They want shock and awe to draw people in. Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes it starts out that way. But a lot of times, all it starts out with is somebody hears a rumor that somebody's doing something, and you start doing the background work. And luckily, the government started hiring a whole bunch more intel analysts. And so rather than, the agent having to do it all, you can go to an intel analyst, and they've been trained in all of the various databases and all this jazz, like LexisNexis and some other ones, where they know how to look a lot of things up. They know how to do the link charts, and stuff like that. And so they can do a lot of digging for you. And then, of course, it's up to you, though, to do all the field work and get out there and actually try to find these people that the intel analyst has come up with information on, and see if the information in the databases matches what the person's actually doing in real life. And then that's how investigation gets started, and things like that.
Okay.
Of course, you've got the other kind of investigations, like we did a lot of. I was working on a border in El Paso. You get a lot of drug seizures, and so you get the drugs, you get the suspect, so you got to go down and interview them, and that's how the case starts. But then sometimes that leads to then a bigger case to a bigger case to a bigger case, and that's when it gets more complicated.
So to circle back, how long abouts did it take you to get Jade Eyes into your hot hands for readers?
Oh, okay. For me to actually get the thing done, I got it done, written within a few months.
Right.
But then because of that problem with the original publisher and everything, it took me probably 2 to 3 years.
Oh man.
To get it at least 2 years. I'm trying to think what I got with Blue Forage, and then I had to push it with them.
It's a long time.
Well, yeah, but see, I had all these other books because I brought a lot of sci-fi and stuff. So it didn't. It was frustrating, but it wasn't like some people. We've got some people in our Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers Group who have published one nice big thick book. Maybe it's fiction, but it's based on something that happened in their life.
Right.
Okay. And they're trying to get it published. Stephen King came out years ago, and he got like 50 or 60 rejections on his first big hit, Carrie.
Yeah.
Before somebody picked it up.
Yeah.
And that's what most people don't realize in the whole publishing world is you're going to get, especially with traditional publishers, you're going to get an awful lot of rejections.
Yeah. Stephen King, he was self-published for a long time under a different name.
Well,
then finally
Bachman.
he came up. Yeah, Bachman. And then he finally got picked up by somebody. I can't remember which one he got picked up by.
Random House or Schuster, one of the big, one of the big publishers.
And now he's, he is like a house name with horror.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, that's just him. So when you got onto Blue Forge Press, how has your publishing experience been with them?
Oh, very excellent, because the owner of the company, Jennifer DeMarco, was a published author years ago. When she was a teenager, she had a bestseller. Wrote some science fiction, was with a major publishing house. Based on those negative experience she had as a young writer, with back in the day, a lot of the publishing houses treated everybody like a piece of meat, especially if you're young and new and, sexy and all that other jazz, where they could push you. And so based on that, first chance she took her money, went back and bought basically Blue Forge, which was a publishing house already that she had actually worked for the previous owner and learned how to edit as an intern.
Okay.
She had all this editing and editing experience, as opposed to a lot of people that's what people don't understand. To be a really good editor, if you don't have experience, because you're an English major does not mean you're an editor.
No. What I've researched with editors, I have an excellent editor.
Yeah.
Excellent editor. He's written, 21 different books himself. He's edited hundreds of books, literary background, in school and PhD and all this fun stuff. So I mean, he's done his research.
Yeah.
But what he was telling me is it's not just about the punctuation and grammar, it's about communication. All writing and reading is communication. Am I communicating clearly the point, the story that I'm trying to get across?
Yeah.
That is his whole job, is to make sure he goes, and there's a lot of back and forth with editing. And it's like, hey, this is what I thought you meant. Am I right? No, I want to be this way. Okay, then we have to restructure how this paragraph reads. And it is quite extensive. It is quite extensive.
That's the thing. People don't realize that you have basic line editing, which is all the grammar and stuff, but then you have content editing, like you said. Does the story flow? Does it make sense? Are the characters, I mean, no matter how fantastic the story is, are the characters relatable and realistic enough that people can identify with?
Right.
Are the characters generally consistent, unless you're purposely trying to get the character to be just all over the wall? I mean, if you're writing about some psychotic dude and you just want him to be completely strange,
that's usually noted prior.
Exactly. But what happens with a lot of people is they lose that flow and they think that, whoa, I'm going to put this sentence in there because I think it sounds cool. Fine. You're trying to write for a specific audience then by throwing a sentence in, but does it fit into the story?
Right.
Does it keep the flow going?
Does it fit with the character's personality? There's a lot of factors to continue. And that's why usually you want to bring in, at least one, maybe two people to read your stuff.
Yeah.
That helps because they can give a perspective that maybe you don't have. That's what I always liked about, having some close people who you are comfortable with, receiving feedback with, and they're a little more harsh than, other people would be. Being honest is having that good constructive criticism is worth, millions. It's priceless, really.
Yeah. That's why I've got a close relationship with my publisher, and I get her and her staff to do that for me.
Right.
And everything. So in fact, I'm writing a sequel to Jade Eyes, and I've told her, I says, Jennifer, I want you specifically to do a hard ass content edit on this book.
Right.
Because I want to make sure that this fits into the original book, that people can see the connection, but also that it's just a good read. You can have somebody, like you said, a beta reader or somebody like that. They like the way you write. Well, that's fine, but how does it fit in with everybody else out there? Is it going to fit into the world that whatever genre you're writing in?
Right. Now, the sequel to Jade Eyes, is it going to be is it a good standalone? Will it be a standalone, or will it be like you have to read book 1 to read book 2?
It'll be, because in the very beginning of the book, I refer to what happened in Jade Eyes, but you can read it as a standalone.
Okay.
A completely different investigation and everything.
Yeah, because I know like Michael Connolly's Bosch series, 30 books out. It's insane. Spanning like 4 decades. You can read each one individually, but it does reference it'll reference a case that happened X amount of years ago with this person. And you don't necessarily need to know the background. It's nice to know just because, a little more depth of story, but you can keep reading and not miss anything out going on in that investigation.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So it's same kind of thing.
It's a separate investigation. So it's not connected to the original story, except for, like you said, people know who she is because of the original investigation from the original book. So she's got a little bit of a reputation. I don't want to give away the whole book, but her nickname is Tiger Lady.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So, if you read the book, people read the book, they'll figure out why.
Yep. I think I've just gotten that point in the book so far. I'm only a few chapters in so far, but the story rings true why she would be called that.
I don't want to give away everything, but you'll understand it because I wrote a bunch of short stories too, based on the characters that are eventually going to be coming out in the short story collection.
Oh,
That I
cool.
want a little bit of X-File type stuff with. But then I decided I needed to get back to just a basic investigation
Right.
for a sequel novel rather than going too much of a science fiction type stuff. To get back to once again to show how investigations are done, how real police work is doing. And this sequel, now she's having to work with another agency on a daily basis.
So how long did you say you worked for? Is it Homeland Security?
Well, yeah, I was a federal investigator for 22 years, and I had previous law enforcement experience with other agencies. So in 1987, I became a U.S. Customs agent.
Oh, okay.
And then of course after 9/11, they took Customs and Immigration, combined the two together. Well, previous to be working for Customs, I worked as a Border Patrol agent, so I knew some immigration. So I guess I had the advantage that when they combined the two agencies, I understood the jobs of both, and a lot of people didn't. That's once again, it's the whole idea. If you're going to write a book, if someone wanted to write a book about that transition period, you'd have to explain the problems of taking two agencies that at one time had a different bailiwick for investigation, all of a sudden expect them to work together.
Okay, that makes sense. And now, so it said you were a senior special agent.
Yeah, I became a GS-13, and that was senior special agent, just below being a supervisor. The last 3 or 4 years that I worked over in Seattle, I was senior trainer, and also I was the senior firearms and use of force instructor.
Oh, okay.
So that's the other thing is I try to go into the whole idea of, contrary to Hollywood, you don't get into shootouts every other day, because if you do, they put you on a desk.
Yeah.
Because you become a liability.
Right.
That series called Justified about the U.S. Marshals.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
No, I have not, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he's a U.S. Marshal down in the South area, like Louisiana, Arkansas, a place like that. He gets involved in a shootout every single episode.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I told him, I said, if that happened in real life, about the third time that happened, he'd be writing a desk for about a year.
Not necessarily how it works.
No, it isn't. I mean,
It's entertainment for a reason.
Yeah, and of course, in this day and age, with the serious, all these politics about law enforcement, anyways, and everybody's got a camera, everybody's now filmed something and they edit it the way that makes their political whatever they want to do. People don't even understand how complicated that gets. Then, of course, instead of just doing your job, you're running around worried about whether or not you're going to get sued, every other day. But I'm retired is what I'm getting at.
There is an element to that. Yeah. No, yeah. Retirement. It's a nice little thing there. How long have you been retired for now?
I retired in 2008.
A decent amount of time.
Yeah. When you're a federal, they call it a covered position. In other words, you're a badge and gun carrier. You can only work till age 57.
Okay.
Federal government, which is bizarre because most police departments now they don't have an upper age limit anymore, because people started saying, hey, if I'm 60 years old and I'm a marathon runner, why can't I get a job? And they got a point there.
Yeah, there's always exceptions to every rule.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if they don't draw a line somewhere, then they're going to have all the exceptions from a jurisdictional or even bureaucratic standpoint, why they would do that. So with your time being retired, I'm assuming this is when you got to do a lot more interaction with Claw then?
Yeah, what I did was I kind of bounced around trying to figure out what I was going to do, and then I started screwing around the internet with writing stories and stuff like that. And I got contacted by what is now called the vanity press. In other words, somebody sees something you wrote and they go, well, if you give us $800 or something, we'll help publish your book. Well, I went ahead and for about $200 to $300, I published something under a completely different name just to learn the process. What a lot of people don't realize is there's a gazillion writers groups out there. A lot of them are writers critique groups. The problem being is a lot of the people that run those groups, if you actually kind of pin them down, a lot of them don't have published books. A lot of them really don't have that much training or whatever, but yet they're trying to tell other people what to do. And so I stopped. When I got involved with Claw, primarily what we do, because we're not really a critique group. We just try to help people get published and market. In other words, we tell everybody our horror stories so they don't wind up making the same mistakes.
And for listeners who do not know what CLAW stands for, could you tell us what that means?
Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers.
Okay, and you guys have a website and all that fun stuff.
Right, we've got a
people
brand new web page that one of our young members is putting up. We have a couple Facebook pages under CLAW too. I kind of manage. So if you type in Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers or CLAW on the Facebook, you'll go to a couple other pages. And I try to list when we're having our next meetings and venues we're coming up to do and things like that.
Right.
And it's open to anybody that wants to come there and kind of figure out how they're going to get their book published.
Sure. Yeah.
We got a lot of self-published people in the group. We got other people that have had publishers and stuff like that. So
yeah. Well, cool. That's good. Yeah, support groups for supporting authors, writers is really important. The if you don't know already, if you're learning, maybe you've gone through it already, like Mark and myself, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. So, and if you are able to navigate the very challenging and wide open waters of publishing, it helps having some resources at your disposal. So I won't lie, that's kind of what this podcast is for too, is to help people to kind of navigate that, talking to folks like yourself, Mark, just learn from people who've made mistakes so you don't have to make those mistakes, and it might shave a few years off of your authorship, process. So CLAW also has public access television too. Is that with CLAW?
Bremerton Kitsap Access Television, we go into their studios or we can film a remote, but basically we do a show, we give it to them. They'll broadcast it. We have a time slot because we've been doing it for several years now. Saturdays at 6 p.m. on Comcast and Astound/Wave cable. So they're broadcast on cable networks, but not satellite. If you look channel 3 of Astound Wave cable or channel 12 on Comcast on Saturdays at 6 p.m., you'll see episodes of our interviews from Kitsap Literary Writers. Like I did a short little vignette of I went to the State Fair and the Blackberry Festival and took my little cell phone camera and ran around and filmed a lot of the activities to let people know when we're down to selling books and stuff, or trying to get people to take a look at our literary works, try to get people to know in the community what goes on. And in fact, anybody who has an idea for a community-based show, they can contact the management of Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. The new manager there is Colleen Miko, and they're looking for outside content for people that want to do a show, like this or a cooking show. We got one guy who's Eric Little, who's also a sci-fi writer who we interviewed. He does a wine show. So that's how we got into Bremerton Kitsap Access Television, was that whole idea that they reached out and they want people from the community to give them content.
So any future events for yourself, your books, for CLAW coming up people should know about?
Yeah, some of us go up to Barbecue to You in Gig Harbor.
How often are you guys out there? Barbecue to You?
We usually we're there all week. Okay. One author gets in there all week, sell their books, and I enjoy it because not only am I very successful, but you get a chance to talk to people. And I think one of the things people don't understand, there's a difference between sales and marketing. Marketing is you actually get out there and you can talk to people and they can see what you've got to offer to them and things like that. A lot of people think all they got to do is they got to be a salesman. They got to be like a used car salesman. And they jump up and get in people's faces, and sing songs and here, buy my stuff. Well,
yeah.
All that is before you know it, you're just irritating the crap out of everybody. And they forget to look at your book because you're such a pain in the butt, and I think that's one of the biggest things people, they'll say that you got to sell yourself, but you also have to get them to actually look at the book, or what you have to offer, and they be able to just have a conversation. I've had long conversations with people about various things, and sometimes they'll buy the book and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
But at least they know who you are then, and they'll remember your name,
Yeah.
and hopefully with a positive spin rather than, boy, you pain in the butt. You wouldn't shut up,
Yeah.
type.
Right. Yep. I found that the best way for me. I was never, like you said, kind of like that stereotypical like sales guy. I had a couple jobs, before I was setting my current career where I was having to sell things for a living. And my methodology was, if you are seriously interested about something that we are selling, I will give you the information. I am
Right.
not giving you any bias. I will tell you exactly what it is. I'm selling the product by telling you about the product. I am not trying to swindle you out of your money. In fact, if you tell me a budget, I will try to work with you on getting that budget met, because it means, yes, I will get a sale, but you'll also get what you need. It's self-serving, and it's, trying to be good trying to make it a fair price. I don't want someone to feel like they got, bamboozled out of something like that. That's not what I want.
And that's why when I price my books through my publisher, I don't want to overprice it. I want to keep it to a decent level, because books and printing have been getting more expensive over the
Everything
years.
has.
And I don't want people to go, my God, sticker shock, because there are some of those people out there, especially if you look at how much books cost now from the major publishing houses. My God, I remember growing up, you could get a pocketbook for 75 cents.
Yeah.
You can't even get that at a used bookstore.
You go to Goodwill and they're like $3 or $4 for a paperback. I mean, like, it's still a steal, but I mean, so I guess this leads to the last question here. So where can people get copies of Jade Eyes and all your other books?
If you go on the internet and you go www.tiny.cc/Marshall Miller, my book should pop up. If you go to the Claw Group page, www.claw.group/Mark Lloyd Miller, which is my real name, all my books from Marshall Miller will be popping up here. They started uploading them, so that page is getting more online, and more authors will show up. If you also go to Blue Forge Press, Google that name and go to their webpage, they have all of their authors' books published that they publish on their websites. And of course, everything's through Amazon. If you look our books up, Amazon. And now they're all also getting into Barnes and Noble.
Okay, excellent.
Claw, we're looking at some other venues, and coming in 2023, we put the word out too. We have been at the Blackberry Festival, which is always around Labor Day. And usually a week or two before that has always been the Kitsap County Fair. And we usually have a booth there too. So we've been there 6-7 years now. People can always find some of our authors there with like I said, their books, their paintings, their other artistic. We reach out to anybody. I call them, everybody's a creative. Anybody who has any type of ability to create something, we want them to come to Claw and talk to us.
Hey, Mark, this has been really great.
Yep.
I appreciate you taking time and meeting with me to inform our lovely listeners about your books and your experiences. Really appreciate you coming on here.
Well, I appreciate you having me, and we'll have to return the favor. And on top of that, hopefully the public out there realizes just how many of us authors are out there running around writing books, and they're not airport books. They're good and usual books, so that people will, shall we say, be a little bit more creativity rather than some of the run-of-the-mill books that you see.
Yeah, that'd be kind of nice to get everyone to focus on some local people for a little while.
Oh yeah,
their work, because there's some great authors out there putting out some good stories. So
Yep.
I think it's starting to come back now. I'm finding a lot of people who are really loving supporting local authors.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of that Claw, and this and Mighty Books are trying their best to make that happen a little more. So, all right, Mark, thanks again.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and you have a good day.
Yes, everyone here. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Everyone, you guys take care. Have a good one. Are you an author? Do you know someone who is? If so, then message me, Ryan Oliver, at ryanmoliver.com to set up a free appointment to discuss being showcased on the Mighty Books podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to the Mighty Books YouTube channel and share the link to this and more episodes with your friends and family. Thanks for listening. So long for now. Stay mighty and keep reading.